Hello.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening.
I'm Robyn.
And I'm Gil.
And we are Rockin the LOVE.
Yes, we are.
We're so glad you're here with us today as we wind up this month of March.
Wow. Month of March gone, basically, folks. Today's the 30th. Tomorrow is the last day of March.
5 weeks.
5 Wednesdays for us this time.
Yeah, 5 Wednesdays.
This is our 13th show. I don't know. Doesn't that mean we're supposed to end our first season and start a new one at the 13? Isn't that like
Lucky 13.
That's the natural number?
Yes, and go on a vacation.
Maybe that's what we'll do. Maybe we'll start season 2 next week.
All right. Well, but you know, it's all good. It's just a number, right?
It's just a number. And God knows a lot of things are just right now.
So, speaking of that, we hope you've had a good week. Why don't you let us know in the chat? Let us know where you're watching from and
who you are.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we're glad to have you. Really glad to have you. And we will talk about this week's theme.
Yes,
Well, this month's theme has been boundaries, borders, and BS. And this week, it's a wrap.
It's a wrap.
We're done for the month. We're done. Yay, we made it through the month. We made it through boundaries, borders, and BS. Twice.
And there was quite a bit of all of them.
Yes.
So, yeah, it's a wrap. It's a wrap in honor of the Academy Awards, the Oscars. We thought we'd go a little Hollywood on you. It's a wrap is, you know, when it's over. So March is over. The awards are over.
And we're getting excited to move into the next thing. Hey, Dr. Cynthia's here with us. Hi. Glad to see you.
Hi, Dr. Cynthia. So we're getting ready to move into the next month. So, but today we just want to wrap up. So let's just have a little conversation, though, about our week.
Our week.
And the Academy Awards, even, because even though I don't want to talk about them, it seems that that's all anybody's talking about. So we may as well just touch on that and get it out of the way.
Well, let's just tell them why it's important, because some of you may not know. The Academy Awards has been a tradition with Robyn since long before I knew her.
Since I was 9.
Since she was 9. Started to sound like my sister-in-law. So that tradition sort of morphed into ours, and we've done multiple parties. And the last couple of years have been kind of weird because of COVID, and we didn't do one. We did a virtual one. And then this year, we just weren't. It just sort of happened, and we weren't paying attention.
Well, speak for yourself, please. Speak for me. We, the people demanded a party this year.
Well, they did. Yes. But I mean, before that, I was like,
I know, but
whatever.
I was paying attention. I just was like wanting to pull the covers over my head. But anyway, long story short, we did have a Oscar party. Hi out there to Bonnie, watching from Jalisco, Mexico.
Hey, Bonnie.
Bienvenidos a todos.
And just for any of you that might be watching that didn't get an invite, don't worry. They went out the night before, and it was only like, we only said a few people because we couldn't figure out how to put it together that fast. So we did something really fast, had a fun time, watched the Oscars, and therefore they're in our minds. Right?
And next year we'll invite you all.
Next year we'll figure it out.
So, okay, let's talk about Will Smith for a minute. Because you can't turn a corner without somebody saying, what about Will Smith?
What about Will Smith?
But let's take a different angle. Let's take a different approach. So let's find the spiritual in that. Viewers, we're looking to you. Anyone who has an idea. Okay, clearly there was a lot going on and all of that. And how do we find the spiritual in those situations? He reacted from wherever he reacted from. I personally have my own opinions about it. I don't believe that it had much to do with what he says it had to do with. And the truth of that is, does it ever, right? It's always something deeper that's brewing that comes to the forefront. But how do we how do we make that spiritual? I mean, how do we find that?
Well, I think the question is why why do we care here? And I would say because we talk about relationship, and I think deeply somewhere in all of that, it was about relationship. It was about relationship, obviously between Chris Rock and Will Smith and Jada, but it was also about the relationship between Will and Jada, and all of those things were going on.
Well, and it was
in that
about the
moment.
relationship with Will and Will.
And Will, yeah, probably even more importantly.
Right.
Yeah.
Bonnie says a spiritual smackdown. Right? Gosh, we seem to get those without asking for them.
I have to say though, I don't know what all we're going to talk about this, but just in my brief observation of it, I thought two things. One, Will went off, but he didn't go absolutely crazy. He went a little crazy. And Chris Rock really just stood there and held the space as being the person in the front, in the middle, and not participating in that portion of it. And yeah. I mean, I think, and then it came around to apologies and other things later. And I think for a rotten situation, there were a lot of good things about it.
Yeah. Dr. Cynthia says some deep hurt in Will looking to be healed.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely right. Absolutely right. Yeah. And we all hold that. And it, I know for me, it jumps out. It's about the relationship with himself and no one else.
That's what I believe that too, Bonnie. That's what I said. I think there's a lot going on there. I mean, the rest is the rest. I mean, obviously, ultimately, we get to the point of there's only one of us here anyway, but I think there was some deep stuff going on with himself. And, it's interesting because I've heard the gamut, as I'm sure you all have, from I will never watch his movies again. He's not the man I thought he was, to not being fazed by it. And it's interesting. I mean, like to put our lives out in public.
Yeah.
And
dude, where's our compassion?
Right.
Right. I mean, people, when people are in the forefront, in the light like that, we know from our own, I know from my own actions that there are things that times when I am angry or I do things I don't particularly think are the best idea. And the more in front of the public you are, the more likely those things are to show up in front of other people. I think most people have the luxury of not, of concealing most of it, if you will, from the larger world. So, nobody knows to not go to their truck stop anymore or something.
Right. To not go where they usually go. Right. So, yeah, I'm just, I think Chris Rock did a phenomenal job at maintaining the show going on and it not turning into something else. And Linda Goldsmith has joined us. Welcome,
Hi,
Linda. And she says, self-sabotage, tragic flow. This was supposed to be his finest hour. Very sad and still wrong. Interesting. Yeah, it's interesting. Like what in him needed that to happen in order to accept the biggest award of his life?
Wow. That's an interesting question.
Yeah.
Yeah. What's in conflict within us that we bring up or that challenges us to act in ways we don't expect or we don't like or we aren't even typical for us? When there's something right in front of us that we're concerned about, like who knows what was going on?
Well, it almost brings up what we were talking about yesterday with Tamara.
Oh yeah.
You say it.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
I mean, in some ways,
we were having a discussion yesterday with a good friend we haven't seen in a while, and we had a Zoom call, and we were talking, and she brought up this idea that she's kind of been working with recently. And are you talking about the Midwest one?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So that somewhere um, some of us have gotten the idea that in order to in order to in order to be who we are, we shouldn't really have to work. We should be talented. And so if we're talented, then we don't have to put in the work. And so if we were really talented, we wouldn't have to try to put in the work. But I don't know, it's just this whole convoluted thing of, it goes between, well, I really don't deserve it because how could I be talented like all those other people? And at the same time, if I really was talented like all those other people, I wouldn't really have to do any work to get there. And so we hit ourselves from both sides, and we stop ourselves. First, we don't deserve it. And secondly, well, if we really were that, we would just show up that way. We wouldn't have to, we wouldn't have to like practice, anything, whatever it was, whether it's tennis or doing a speech or whatever it is that we're doing.
Yeah. I hope that made sense to y'all, but it made sense in my head. I mean, because it's just, we see Will Smith and we see him in a certain way, and we see his persona, and the persona we love and we love to love, and, that's funny and fun and this and that. But what does Will Smith see himself as, and yeah, how it all plays together. So Bonnie says she would love it if we could explore self-sabotage in relationship to Will Smith and ourselves. We would love that too, Bonnie.
I don't want to explore self-sabotage. Thank you.
I think you've done that this week. I think you've done that check. No, I think that it is a great topic. And I mean, having not really thought about it, and I'm happy for y'all to chime in on that, because it is interesting. It is interesting. I mean, if we believe everything happens for a reason, really, what was that reason? What? And did he? I don't know. I mean, he hadn't won the award yet.
Mm-mm.
So I don't know. Was it fear? Fear of not winning? Fear of not? I don't know.
Wow, there's so many ways you could frame that, and we're obviously talking totally out there, because we have no idea what was going on for him. But I can see myself in a situation like that, even unconsciously setting it up so that when I didn't win, it wouldn't feel as bad.
Well, and if you didn't win, clearly you'd still get the press.
Right. Wow.
And the night will never be remembered in that way of like the night Will Smith won the Oscar.
Right. It's going to be the night Will Smith punched Chris Rock.
Yeah. That's not funny.
Well, it's funny in the sense that it's just not exactly what anybody wanted or he wanted.
Yeah.
That's my thought.
Yeah.
Well, and I think this whole idea of sabotage, we talked some about this in the Tony Robbins conference that we were at, that it's a clash of our values. And perhaps it's not so much that we self-sabotage as we don't realize what we value. And so when those values conflict, they push against each other. Like if I really value being seen in the world and I really value privacy or not being hurt, perhaps not getting rejected. How about that? If I value not getting rejected and I also value being seen in the world, those two are going to bump into each other. I'm going to do things that cause me to not put myself out there because I don't want to be rejected. But by not putting myself out there, I'm not going to be seen in the world. And so, am I sabotaging myself, or am I prioritizing a different value at different times?
Well, and it's so interesting because you would think that this wouldn't be Will Smith's problem, right?
Oh, well, no, because he's beyond
because
that.
He's Will Smith.
Yeah.
Right. And I mean, but clearly there was a fear. There was a fear there, and he acted on it. Bonnie says, self sabotage having to do with self worth. Am I really worthy of this status and position?
Yeah, I think that's always true for me, um, and I'm guessing it's true for others as well. And I think that idea you just said about, well, Will Smith, we wouldn't worry about him. He is no different than you or I or anyone else, and we forget that sometimes. We forget that for ourselves, and so we judge ourselves harshly, and we forget that for him, and so we also judge him harshly because somehow he's beyond that,
Right.
and it's not fair to him, and it's not fair to us.
So I'm going to go even deeper than that in saying that, yes, we forget that he's like us. And I'm going to say, while there may be some tinge or whatever of all of the things we've said, I'm going to say his fear was really more based in his fear of not being seen as a man, which I think, based on all the other stuff going on around Jada and Will's marriage and them being in an open relationship, and rumor has it that he doesn't like it as much as she does, and blah 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 blah. I don't want to get into the gossip, but I'm going to say that I think it had to do much more with his manliness and him showing up as the man in the relationship than it did with the rest of it. I mean, come on, the whole show was like a crack at everybody in Hollywood. He's been in Hollywood a long time. He's had people talk about him, Jada, everything. But it was a breaking point, is my opinion. My opinion. I love Will just the same. I wish he didn't revert to violence. But I think he's a wonderfully talented person and very inspirational to many people, and his body of work speaks for itself. And I don't know who behind closed doors kicks their dog or yells at their wife or any of those things, and it's not my business. So I got your back, Will. I don't know.
So we have somebody asking, what about him being a black man? Do you think there's something in there that inherently part of what's going on here? I'm not sure that I see that, but what's your thought around that?
Well, I'd have to know more about that question. What about him being a black man? I mean, do I think that it shows up differently in the press? Do I think that he did it because he's a black man? I'm not really sure how to answer that based on the question. So please say more.
Linda says, is it the man's job to protect his partner in a relationship in our culture? I don't know that it is the man's job. I will speak to this personally, but I think there's a level at which we are brought up to feel responsibility, to take care of our family, to protect them in some way. And I think there's some innate thing in us that says, we are supposed to make sure those around us don't experience pain, even though that's in some ways crazy. We can't do that, but that's what we do with our kids. That's what we do with people we love, is we try to protect them from whatever pain there is in the world, from affecting them personally. And I have a feeling that that's somewhat about what that was, where that comes from in terms of our culture. I mean, and maybe it's not necessarily just a man's job. I mean, we've certainly seen plenty of examples of women protecting their man differently, probably not so much in a physical that way, but certainly in other ways, making sure that they are protected and insulated from things, right?
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Yeah.
I would agree with that. And again, I would just say I would turn Linda's question into to the singular statement. I think it was his job to protect himself. And I think that's really what he was doing. I don't think it was so much
Yeah.
everything else.
It was
That's
protecting his own feelings of value and self-worth as a man versus really protecting anyone else.
yeah.
Yeah. And that's what it usually is for me. You know, I mean, I'm trying to protect whatever it is I think I need to protect in me, as opposed to really thinking about how this is going to help and protect the other person. You know, it's more of, this is what I think I can do, and I got to do it now, because otherwise, what will I have done? I will have done nothing. And now what?
Okay, and Facebook user, I'm really curious as to that question. So if you want to explain a little more, because I would love to dive into that. I just don't understand the question. There you are. Okay, sorry for the pause. We're reading. You mentioned anger. Black anger has deep roots. I just wanted this blackness not omitted.
Hmm.
That's a whole different conversation, then, isn't it?
I mean, that what I got from that, just, and I may be way off, but just that sense of generational anger, even, that's there. You know, and then you go and, you know, see, we can go psychological like crazy on this.
Yeah, there's a lot of things we could say about that. I mean, I think that if you yes, there are deep roots to all anger. Black anger has its own particular roots. And let me just say, as a person of color, speaking as an African American, I don't think that it had to do with the blackness. I think that um Chris Rock is black. He didn't take a swing back. I think that I, I don't think it has to do with color right now. And Bonnie is asking why do you want blackness omitted?
Not want blackness omitted.
Oh, not want blackness omitted.
That's an interesting question. I think what I'm hearing you say, Bonnie, is, why is it important to make sure that the blackness aspect is brought up? You know, is that really important because he is a black man versus he was any other man, Asian, white, Hispanic, anything else? That is an interesting question. And I think that, you know, now we've just hit a whole host of cultural questions around all of this, around how we deal with each other.
Yeah. And I don't think we're prepared to go there today. I mean, I don't. I think that if we get into race, it's a very sensitive topic that I think would need to be thought out a little bit more. I can't personally. I can't boil this down to race. I think that it could have been anybody sitting there who'd had a cocktail, waiting to see if they won Best Actor, jump up and lose their mind.
Yeah. Or if Chris Rock was white. Yeah, that's a comment from our Facebook user friend. If Chris Rock was white, and I that did run through my head, like, how would this have been couched in the press? What would have been different had Will Smith hit a,
Brad
Pitt and Michael McConaughey. I don't know, what's his name, McConaughey.
Yeah, it's good to use the name
Right.
You're gonna cite
Sorry.
Brad Pitt.
Brad Pitt, I know that name.
Matthew.
Okay, so that's a good question, and sure, I'm guessing it would have been different. And would Will Smith have even done it? Who knows? Maybe something about them being, that whatever connection there is in that, it felt even
friendship
safer for him to respond honestly and authentically in that moment than it would have with someone else. Who knows? I mean, I can see that happening as a possibility. I mean, I think we do it within our family. We show up and we show anger differently than we do out in the world. You know, there's certain people that we're connected to in different ways. I don't know what their relationship is outside of there, and who knows how close they've been or not been over the years. And there may have been, you know, those kinds of things too, that it became very personal in some way.
Yeah, we just don't know the circumstances. Bonnie says Will Smith is in the category of privileged people, not your average black man. Okay. Well, that is true. And that does not mean he does not carry black anger or a host of other things that we all have. So,
wow. And Bonnie, I think we're all privileged. I mean, I hear what you're saying. But at the same time, I think all of us, even talking here, are privileged. You know, so it's an interesting thought.
And Linda says, I think one of the most fascinating things about this is how much outrage is being expressed in Hollywood. So many films and TV glorify violence. Yeah, it's true.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. If it was in a movie, we all would have cheered. I mean, right? Most everybody, yeah, you tell him. I mean, I've seen, I don't know how many movies where basically that was the response in some situation like that.
Yeah.
So that's interesting. And our other Facebook friend reminds us that it's all been speculation, and she was just tossing in the idea. So, and thank you for that. I mean,
thank you, Facebook user, for keeping us on our toes.
It was some good questions and some good thoughts. And like you say, it is all speculation. We don't know. But what we do know is that relationship is incredibly complicated because there's so much to work with ourselves, and then out from ourselves to the next layer, and then out from that layer to the next layer. And wow, there's so much to learn.
Yeah. And so much. I mean, at the end of the day, we're all human. You know, it's kind of like the pandemic all put us in the same place. It didn't matter who was privileged and who wasn't. They couldn't go out of their house. You know, and it's like at the end of the day, we all get angry. We all get sad. We all have emotions and things that are happening in our life that can keep us stuck or move us forward or take us to the next level. So the next level is going to occur right after we come back from a break, right here on New Thought Media Network.
Good afternoon, good morning, good evening, everyone.
We're so glad you're here with us on Rockin the Love. I'm Robyn.
And I'm Gil.
And we've been having a lively discussion. That was really great. We thought we were just going to touch on it, but y'all jumped right in.
Yes.
So thank you so much. Thank you, everybody out there. And it's good, some good thinking going on there.
Absolutely. And so we want to kind of just wrap up what our monthly, what our theme has been this month and what we've talked about, and sort of review it a little bit and talk about some of those things. And so if anybody has anything that they have a thought about from the previous shows, we talked about breaking through boundaries, and we've talked about borders
and BS
and belief systems. And so let's just talk for a moment about breaking through boundaries and that whole idea of how important it is to move through oftentimes a boundary that we've created. Why is that true? It's a test.
Tell us. Okay.
Well, okay. Go ahead.
Sorry, you assume I was listening. Okay, go ahead. Sorry.
Wow.
It's a marital thing. Sometimes you just go away and you can come back in somewhere else. But he caught me.
I caught her. Okay. So I think the thing that struck me about that whole conversation about boundaries is that so often we have some kind of boundary that we set up for ourselves that isn't really helpful, or maybe it was helpful, but it's not helpful anymore. And we have boxed ourselves into something to where we can't allow ourselves to push out from that, or to learn something new, or to try again another type of relationship or something like that, because we've set this boundary based on some belief that we've adopted along the way. And that's, again, so here we go. So this is how they're tied together. We have some belief, from the belief we create a boundary, and then we stop ourselves from moving forward. Does that make any sense?
Yeah.
Good. All right, everybody, thanks. It's a wrap. Bye.
No, but so what?
I was just kind of recapping how important it is to break through those things, because if we're going to be in a relationship, we can't stay stuck in the old stories, and it's not easy. It's not always easy.
That's true.
And not do that.
You realize this is going to be documented on the internet, so I'll be able to put this in front of your face for life. Yes, breathe deep. No, but I'm serious, because it's true. So I think, boundaries, borders, and BS. My favorite of those is BS.
Yes.
My favorite of those is the belief systems, because really, it is the bullshit we tell ourselves. It is the old stories. It is what we see and we think is real.
Mm-hmm.
And we make it a thing.
Well, we think it's real, in the sense that because we decided it was. It's not even like it's something we think is real because it looks real. It's like we just made it up and now it's real.
Right.
But something struck me in this, and that is that, yesterday I did a very stupid thing.
Can you tell the story without condemning yourself?
Well, it's kind of how it was.
Because that's your belief.
That's my belief system. So I made a mistake yesterday.
It's a full-time job, folks.
And I'm raising a husband, and I left my man purse hanging on a chair, and inside of it was my wallet and my extra wallet and all of my cards and my license and all of my stuff and everything, and it wasn't there when I realized I had left it on the chair. And I just went really, I didn't go crazy in the sense of angry and all that stuff. I just was really upset with myself, and I was sad, and I was frustrated, and I just couldn't even face dealing with it or coming home. That's the truth. And what I wanted to say about it, though, was that Robyn has learned over the years that there's a boundary that she's been able to honor a different boundary, and that is she didn't hassle me or push me or even try to get me to talk to her. She just let me be for a while. And I have to really be honoring of that, because that made a huge difference. And somehow that was about learning, like, where, like, for you, the boundary has been for yourself. You need to be connected and know what's going on. And you were willing to let that boundary go for yourself in order for us to have a different experience of this. It allowed me to just be angry without getting angry at you for bugging me while I was angry. And it also allowed me to process through. And I felt loved in a different way. I felt love that you honored me in a different way.
Thank you. This is a new behavior for me. I mean, and this isn't a regular behavior for him. So it was
We don't get a chance to try it out too often.
But I want to speak to that situation in terms of belief system, because what you said this morning was he was still a little depressed. He's depressed. I mean, as we all would be, right? When it feels violating and all of that. But sorry, it sounds dramatic when I try to say it out of my mouth. That's my life is over. I was like, it was your bag. I mean, it was your wallet. I get it. It was money. You had money in there, So it's like, but that's our belief system. We tell ourselves over and over, that's it. It's over. It's over. And it's and only if we let it be, right? Only if we keep going down that road of it's a dead end road and there's nowhere to go. You know, I get it. It was your stuff and it was hard to move from that place. But for me, it was like, okay, got to cancel credit cards, got to da 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 da. I mean, I went into like action on the other end while you were doing your thing. And it's like creating, being able to move. I didn't say not grieve, because I know there's grief doula fairies listening, and that I get that it's a place to grieve when you lose your stuff.
Well, I think for me, I really did feel like it was a really silly mistake. And I think that's what was so upsetting about it for me, was it was just one of those really silly things. I let myself get focused on something else and I didn't pay attention. And that, that was annoying. And I think that was part of what set me off. Dr. Cynthia says, time to look at the belief systems and ask the question, is this true for me now? Great awareness on both of your parts, on both of you. Blessed always. So that idea, okay, now she's saying more.
She said, I locked myself out of my apartment last night and I thought that I would sleep in the car. Instead, I knocked on my neighbor's door and asked her to call my landlady to come and bring me a key.
Wow. Cynthia, I hear you. That's the kind of feeling I had. I wanted to just, it's my fault. I did it. It's dumb. I don't want to admit that I did it to myself. I don't want to deal with all the consequences. I'm angry that somebody couldn't just have enough respect to walk it the 10 steps from where it was to where I was sitting and bring it inside after I'd left it there. And, all those things went through my head.
So I will say, though, that yesterday it was interesting, because usually what happens in those situations is he gets really angry. And like one time they broke into his car and stole a computer, and he followed the signal across the bridge to San Francisco. I'm like, what are you doing? It's a little computer. He's like, no, I must get it, and he followed it to the apartment. And I'm like, oh dear God, does he not realize the climate we're living in, what's he going to do? Storm up to the door and, okay. So anyway, I mean, these people broke into his car, and I found it super interesting yesterday, though, that there had been this man that was looked disheveled and as if he might be homeless or whatever, and had come up to the window and stood there and stared at us. And afterwards, Gil was like, I think it was that man. I'm like, well, he's around here all the time. So I hop in my car and I race with our godson over to see if we can find him. Well, we find him. So I find him and I call Gil. And so Gil gets out and he has a talk with him. And like, I don't know what you said, but you were very calm. And I was really glad about that. But I was like, why is he so calm? And I parked the car. My godson's like, what are you doing? I'm like, I'm going to go talk to him. He's like, what do you mean? And he's terrified because, because it's a man and it's me. And I leap out of the car and I go to talk to him. And I thought, and you're driving out. And I'm like, this is such a weird juxtaposition, but I didn't get upset. I was like, I tried a different angle. I'm like, I just wondered if you found my bag because it has pictures of my kids in it that I really want to get, and I could give you a reward if you had it. Blah, 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 blah. Yeah. Anyway, so I didn't get violent. I just want y'all to know after our first conversation. But it was totally the position switched. You didn't even know that yet.
No, I didn't know that. I watched you.
Oh, yeah.
I was protecting you from afar.
Thanks. Thanks a lot.
No,
anyway,
but yeah, that was one of those situations where I had no idea. This guy had just happened to come up shortly after I'd come inside from where I'd left it, and then wandered off, and just had that look. He had a backpack, and when I asked him if he had anything, he wasn't all that coherent, and he didn't know. And asked him if what he had in the backpack, and I couldn't see any reason to take it a step further and violate him with, let me see your backpack and that stuff.
Well, but isn't that interesting? Because you couldn't see the reason, and I get that. I totally get that. And yet your whole life was over.
Yeah, that's
so
true.
Who are you fighting for? Who are you standing for in that moment?
Yeah.
And I mean, I get it. And I don't know that either one of those things are the solution. It's just interesting what happens in our head.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. So the belief system,
Bonnie says,
is what puts, you read it because I can't see it.
The belief system is what puts the boundary in place. So it all starts with what you believe.
Yes. And so interestingly, I think I butted up against one of my boundaries, and that was my belief that I can't treat someone else that way.
Which
and so even though I had a suspicion after I asked him, and he didn't seem to have any real knowledge or seem to be suspicious in any way, I was like, well, even though he doesn't want to open his backpack, I don't think that necessarily means anything. And I can't assume that it does. And that wouldn't be fair of me. And that would, so all those things. So my boundary and my belief system is that I should treat all people fairly, and without judgment, except my wife.
So it's very, the belief system is complicated.
Yep.
Because in any given moment, we sort of change our beliefs. We sort of morph, we can, justify different things. So it is really getting in touch with the ones that are running you and that are those ones that cling to you and hang in there, right?
Yeah. So belief systems, they're an opportunity for us to really, really look at what do we really believe and why. And so I think, diving into a situation like this, you can really see where there's all these different beliefs that are showing up. I was having the belief about how I wasn't taking care of my things. I wasn't taking care of myself. I wasn't being responsible. I had all these beliefs around what I should be. and I was, and I hadn't lived up to them, and so therefore I was very upset about the whole thing. And it was basically came down to my belief that somehow I'm supposed to be perfect, right? I mean, that I'm supposed to not make a mistake. And
Well, you're the man.
yeah, and we have those beliefs, and so in going back through it, I have to go to, okay, so as I go from this place forward, is that really what I believe? Can I release that belief? Can I go, I am perfect, whole, and complete, even in the midst of my imperfection? Can I be that? Can I believe that? Can I hold that? And if I can hold that in my relationship to me, then I can move that around and hold it in my relationship to others as well.
That's beautiful. It's true. And I would just like you to let go of the belief that you need to carry a bag with all of those things in it. Put your wallet in your back pocket. That's all I got to say.
Okay.
Anyway, so we're looking forward to next month. I think it's going to be super fun. We're going to have some exciting guests, and it's about awakening the garden. What happens in spring when everything starts to rebloom and refertilize? And I know we have Dr. Cynthia out there who's an expert gardener. And when just the seeds and everything comes into fruition. And how do we reawaken the garden? How do we reawaken that passion within ourselves and find that in our relationships or in things that we've let go of that we want to do, and all of that? So that's what the topic. If there's anything you'd like us to add in there to talk about in specific, please let us know. And
Well, I think we're going to talk about what seeds are we planting? How do we tend to them? How do we care for them? And then what are we expecting to come forth in our relationships and in our life based on those things? Right?
yes,
We want to awaken that garden within, because that garden is there. How many of you have had a house or a place where you've been and there's been a really nice plot of land and you said that would make a great garden, and then like 2, 3, 4 years later you look out and you go, that would make a great garden.
we still have plants sitting outside that was supposed to be planted. Anyway, so that's our topic, and we hope you'll join us. Is there anything else we need to say about this week? This concludes our birthday celebration.
Yes, we have officially arrived at 2022 birthdays. Oh, but next month we'll be celebrating our anniversary. So, believe it or not, we are coming up on how many years, honey? Do you remember?
20.
20 years of marriage, which is pretty shocking, because I don't feel more than about a year and a half older than I did when I married Robyn. and yet we've been together 20 years, 20 plus years we've been together.
Yeah.
Wow.
So we know a little bit about relationship.
Yeah,
so,
a
just
little.
saying. Yeah, but that's about it. But the good thing is we're still hanging in together to figure it out. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to keep doing that this week. And thank you for joining us and your well wishes and 20 years of life together. I know Dr. Cynthia has worked with Gil before, so I know she knows that it's not an easy job. Just kidding. I'm only saying that now because she can't talk back. And if she could talk back, she would say, no. I know. Anyway, so if you enjoyed the show, we'd love it if you went to the New Thought Media Network page and dropped a little donation there, and it just helps everybody do their job a little better, and it helps us be able to take this out into the world. And it's so great to have people that can join us from Mexico and the UK and all over Geneva, and just it's so exciting. If nothing else, it helps us remember truly that we are one. So,
and we appreciate all of you for joining us, and we're just having fun with this, and just want to make it something that hopefully brings some value and some humor and some light to your day each week. And we will be coming to you live next week from the Great Wolf Lodge, so look out. We're on a little family adventure, but we're gonna come to you live from somewhere there. I don't know if it'll be from our room or by the pool or what, but we'll be there.
All right, y'all. Have a great week and rock the love.
Rock and
See
love,
ya
everybody.
next week on New Thought Media Network.